Welcome to the Higher Ed. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Got a good crowd today. So, do we have people that want to speak on behalf of the bill? Based on, okay. You want to do a sign-up sheet for us? You got a pad? We need a pad sign-up sheet. So, Courtney's not here. We got to. Okay. There you go. Representative Chandler, I'm going to let you go down to the end of the table to present. You don't have to do it now to present the bill, though. Okay. Yeah. Just pull the mic down there to you. And sign up sheet, if you'll put it also right over here at the end. If you want to speak on behalf or against the bill, if you'll please sign up over here. Go ahead and do it now, if you will, please. We had one lady that wanted to speak. Okay. No, we're going. Yeah. We don't have a. Okay, good. Have we got copies of it? Okay. Oh, so you want to get that and make copies of the fiscal note for each one of us, please. So. Sign up sheet. No. Okay. Welcome to Higher Ed. We're going to hear a presentation of a bill, House Bill 798 by substitute. And you should have a substitute in your file. LC number 336388S. And Representative Chandler, if you want to go ahead and present your bill. And what's your mic number down there?
It is 1.
Okay. Is that it? Test?
That's it.
Okay.
It's on. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we're passing around some sheets that you may not even need, because you may know all about the HOPE and all about the Zell and all about these scores, but it's there in case you need it. Basically, what this bill has 3 parts. One is very simple, needs very little explanation, if any. The other 2 might need a little more explanation. The first part simply changes the scores that are used for the Zell and the HOPE from number scores to percentile scores. The reason for this is that percentiles are more consistent, they're more predictable, they are a fairer way of looking at scores. There can be variation from year to year in SATs and ACTs. So if you say a student has to have, let's say, a 1200 or a 26 to get the Zell, well, next year that might look a little differently. It might be that instead of that being the 80th percentile, which it is based on 2014 scores, that might be, as it was in 2015, that 26 went up to a 28. I don't want to confuse you with it, but it's just a way of having more consistency. It's a good statistical term. It is a logical way to look at this. The other 2 parts of this bill there's a little bit more involved there. Basically, when we consider the HOPE and the Zell, there are 2 kinds of students. And you may know this, but let me just bear with me if you do, because I suspect that some of you might not. There are eligible students and there are ineligible students. And that's what the law says. That's the way the law refers to students. Eligible students are those young people who graduate from an accredited high school. That could be a public school, a private school. Ineligible students are those young people who graduate from a home study program where mama and daddy are the primary teachers, and this young person might go to another parent's home for a class occasionally, but most of the teaching is done by mother and daddy. Those are ineligible students. Now, there could be some other students who are ineligible because there could be young people who graduate from an unaccredited high school. At this time, there are no unaccredited public high schools, according to DOE. There was no way I could find out about private. I have no idea, but I think that number is probably rather small. So, when we're talking about ineligible and eligible, you'll know what we're talking about. The first part of this bill, and I would refer you to line 20, is dealing with, again, this is just, you will see we've just changing the number from 1,200 and a 26 to the 80th percentile, and that is based on 2014 scores. We could have chosen 2015, but when I first started working on this, the 2015 scores weren't available. And so it doesn't matter what year you choose. So I just have looked at 2014. If you come down to line 25 and continuing on the next page, you will see what I would propose that we do to change the Zell Miller. Presently, eligible students can receive the Zell Miller if they graduate from high school with a 3.7 and they have a 1200 SAT or a 26 ACT, which according to 2014 scores is the 80th percentile. Presently ineligible students, those homeschool students and other young people in unaccredited schools, cannot receive the Zell until they complete 30 hours in college and have a 3.3. As you remember, one of the main purposes of the Zell was to keep our strongest students in Georgia. And so what I would propose is that we change that so that students, ineligible students, homeschool students and others, who are at the 93rd percentile, which is rather high. We're talking about a 1350 SAT and a 29 ACT, according to 2014 scores. I would propose that those young people are given the Zell upon entering college. And I think what we might be able to do that way is keep some of those very, very strong students from going out of state, because, you know, when they can go out of state and get a full ride up front, they don't have to worry about paying that money up front. So that's part of the proposal, and you will see that on 27, 28, 29. The other part of my proposal deals with a hope. And if you come over to line 89, right in there, you'll see the change I would propose for the Hope Scholarship, the other part of Hope. Presently, ineligible students are eligible for the Hope if they have ineligible students, if they have an SAT or an ACT at the 80th percentile. Now remember, that's the same as the Zell Miller for eligible students. Eligible students to receive the Hope need no SAT, no ACT. It is strictly based on a 3.0 grade point average. That's all for eligible students. But ineligible students, as it stands now, must have a score at the 80th percentile, 1200 or 26. I would propose that that be lowered to the 75th percentile. That still is a score of 1160 or 24 on the ACT. The 2014 averages for the SAT were 10, 10, and 21 on the ACT, and those are national averages. And that's the bill, and I would be delighted to try to answer some questions.
Okay. Okay, Representative Bentley. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Chandler, for presenting this bill. But I do would like to know, when you were putting together this piece of legislation, was there any consideration of rural counties? Because, I represent a lot of small rural counties, and I'm just curious to know where there any discussion with any schools south of Atlanta, south of Macon, and I'm just trying to figure out how this is going to affect the students in my area of the state.
Well, Representative, I'm not sure I know how to answer that because those students would be treated just like everybody else in the state, those in Metro Atlanta and everywhere. So this bill would give all of these ineligible students an advantage that they haven't had. It would not make them be equal in any way with eligible students, but it would make this more equitable. And I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
And again, ineligible is described as those students that are homeschooled.
And who are in a high school that is unaccredited, which could be some of the small private schools that we have around the state. And again, I was not able to find out a number there.
Because none of our public schools are considered to be.
All of our public schools are eligible.
Okay.
But again, you see the discrepancy that we're dealing with here.
I understand. Thank you for that.
Hey, Chairman Casas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Chandler, I don't know if I don't have any wording for this, but a large number of, well, I wouldn't say a large number, but an increasingly big number of home study students are going to begin to take advantage of dual enrollment.
Yes. So
before they even get to graduating from a home study program, they're going to have a college record. And I was wondering if you've given thought to including that as part of the qualifications. We see that they have to maintain a minimum of a 3.3 in that first year of work, but you can have the SAT, ACT requirements, but what about the work they're doing during dual enrollment?
I appreciate your saying that because I did think about that, Representative, because it would seem to me that if these home study students have taken college courses and been successful, that should be sufficient. But I decided to focus it just clearly on the HOPE and the ZEL, but I do think that's something we need to look at, and perhaps in another bill. That was my idea.
Okay. Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Chandler, thank you for bringing this. I just want to make sure that I understand a little bit of the background of the legislation. So right now, students that are both homeschooled or in an ineligible school right now, they can still qualify to get the HOPE or ZEL, but once they qualify, it's just paid retroactively.
Not the HOPE.
Not the HOPE.
The ZEL.
Okay.
Now, if a homeschool student does not have, let's say a homeschool student graduates from high school and does not have a score in the 80th percentile, he can go to college and have a 3.3, and that can be reimbursed.
For the ZEL.
For the HOPE even. For the HOPE even. And I didn't mention that because that's the present law. But the thing that this would change is it being from that the ZEL with a student with a 93rd percentile score would be able to get the ZEL going into college.
Up front instead of retroactive.
That's right, and not have to wait.
Because some students, there may be a barrier if they have to pay that tuition up front.
It is.
So this is going to give us an opportunity to allow more of Georgia's brightest students, even though they may come from a non-traditional school, to go to college here in our state, and hopefully, like we've seen with the Zell Miller Scholarship, stay in our great state.
That's exactly what it does. I understand that there are homeschool students who are going to Harvard and MIT and Duke, and of course Georgia and Georgia Tech. So, we'd like to keep more of those students at Georgia and Georgia Tech, or wherever they choose to go in the state.
Thank you for bringing this.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Chandler, you might want to tell the committee, I know you're on the committee, your background. I don't think most people know that you're a retired educator and high school counselor.
I'm a retired educator with 31 years, and 27 of those years I was a high school counselor.
Right. So you know a little bit about the business then?
I should.
Okay.
Anyway.
Any other questions here? Okay. Chris Green, you want to come up and tell us, of Georgia Student Finance, y'all's feelings on the bill? Just use, what mic number is that over there? Okay. I know we've had numerous meetings with Representative Chandler, so.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Chris Green, here representing the Georgia Student Finance Commission. We are the state agency that administers all of the Hope Scholarship and grant programs. We have no position on the bill and certainly look forward to supporting whatever the will of the committee is.
Okay. Any questions for him since he's neutral? We got one here. Representative Kelly?
I just wanted to ask, maybe administratively, how y'all administer the retroactive. I mean, someone, once they know the student qualifies, I guess they just contact y'all in some way and y'all have a form, or y'all verify with the college that they're attending?
Yes, sir. Working very closely with the financial aid administrators, they would invoice us once a student goes to the financial aid office and asked to be evaluated for Hope eligibility.
After they've completed their first year?
Yes, sir.
Do you think it makes it easier for y'all, since this will be coming through like every other student right now, so y'all don't have to deal with the retroactive portion?
I don't know that it would increase or decrease the workload for the agency. As Representative Chandler mentioned, the students, particularly referring to Zell, are earning Zell, later on regardless, so just a matter of whether we should award it to them on the front end versus after completing retro.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Okay, Ms. Morris with the Georgia Home Education Association, if you'll go right here to your right and just tell us who you are, and again, for the record, please.
Absolutely. How close is it?
Yeah,
Can
just
y'all
pull
hear
it
me?
to you. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, hello. Thank you for letting me be here today. My name is Mary Beth Morris, and I'm here representing the Georgia Home Education Association, or GHEA, along with several of my other board members and GHEA's founders who are with us today. GHEA was founded in 1992. We are an all-volunteer nonprofit organization, and we exist to support, promote, and protect homeschooling here in Georgia. GHEA also has a long established history of advocating for fair and equal treatment for homeschoolers of our state. And in the spirit of striving for that goal of fairness and equity for our homeschoolers, that brings us here today, and we're here to speak in support of Representative Chandler's bill. And also we want to thank her and her co-sponsors for their leadership in introducing this bill that will help us make progress toward that goal. The 32-year history of homeschooling in Georgia since the homeschool statute was passed in 1984 has proven homeschooling is a viable educational option here in Georgia. Our experience here in Georgia is consistent with the national research that shows as adults, homeschool graduates, are more likely than their peers to participate in community service, to vote, to engage in civic opportunities, and the research also shows that homeschool graduates are more likely, at least equally or more likely than their peers, to go on to college and to succeed in college. Just a little about myself. My husband and I have been homeschooling here in Georgia for almost 20 years. Our eldest child, Morgan, is a May 2015 graduate of Shorter University. She graduated with honors. She is currently in graduate school pursuing her PhD at the Medical University of South Carolina, and she hopes to do medical research. Our second child, Reed, is in his second year studying mechanical engineering at Georgia Tech. He's consistently making the dean's list. He's doing well. If you all are familiar with the Invention Studio, he loves it. That's his playground. Our third child, Colin, is participating in the Move On When Ready program. All of our kids have dual enrolled. Colin is a dual enrollment student at the University of North Georgia. He's doing very well as well. Our youngest, and he'll graduate this year. So our youngest two children are twins. They have just begun their high school studies, so we're going to be homeschooling for a little bit longer. And I'm sharing about our children's successes, not really to brag, but maybe a little. But I just want you to see a snapshot and get an idea and put a face on one example of what a homeschooling family in Georgia looks like. And I'm here to ask on behalf of those families, and these are homeschooled students who have worked hard and they're deserving of all of the benefits of our great state, just like their peers who chose a different route for education through 12th grade. And in particular, here to talk to you today about Hope and Zell and equity there. Excuse me just a second. Our family is very, very grateful for the Hope and Zell scholarships. Both Morgan and Reed qualified for Hope as home study graduates upon entering college as freshmen, and that was based on the test scores that Representative Chandler has described to you. Each of them qualified for retroactive Zell after they finished their freshman year, and we went through that process. And I just want to let you know that while we are very, very appreciative for that retro Zell, when you walk, that process itself has some frustrations associated with it. In Morgan's case, she was at a small private college, and you know the reimbursement between Zell and Hope is much smaller for private institutions. And in her case, the financial aid office actually discouraged us from even pursuing retroactive Zell because it was, in their words, a lot of paperwork for only a few $100s. But to our family, that few $100s made a lot of difference. And in Reed's case, he's at a large public university. He had to take out substantial student loans to cover the gap between Hope and Zell during that first year. And then he experienced lengthy delays waiting on reimbursement from the college once the Zell had been awarded through the GSFC process. So I'm just telling you, it would be so much easier and so much less frustrating to be able to receive that from the start. And I would also be remiss if I did not echo and assure you that what Representative Chandler has shared with you is in fact the case. The inequity in the eligibility criteria for Hope and Zell, as well as the inequity in the college admission policies here in Georgia, drives many, many of our best and brightest home study graduates to pursue and enroll in colleges out of state. What they experience in those colleges are college admissions officers who welcome them and are excited to have them, and they also receive better scholarship packages. And many of these students who leave will never return to Georgia. And Georgia needs to act now to try to do what it can to level that playing field and recognize that all students, regardless of how they were educated in kindergarten through 12th grade, deserve equal access to what our state has to offer. Homeschooling works and it's growing. Our graduates are proving themselves in all walks of life, not just colleges and universities, but certainly on campus. So we're asking you to help grant more equity and fairness to the deserving homeschoolers of Georgia by creating that path where none currently exists to the Zell Miller Scholarship as an entering college freshman, and also providing that better access to the Hope Scholarship. We support the proposed changes, and also, we support House Bill 798, which opts for scores based on the national percentiles rather than the fixed score. And in our reason for that, our primary reason, is the continued revisions that the testing companies were kind of at their mercy. And you all may be aware that there's a new SAT going to be released in March. Nobody really knows what's going to or how to prepare for that. So in the interest of fairness, we're asking that the Zell score for home study students be established so that our children can get it as home study graduates. Now, we're going to go out on a limb here and tell you we would really, 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 in true fairness, love to see no distinction between the whole eligible, ineligible. But realizing the climate that we live in, we'll tell you that we feel that having that path to Zell is much more important than than not having it. So we support the bill. Also, I want to encourage you to think and realize that failing to act will only hurt Georgia. It's because you remember that research I told you about earlier, that research that shows that homeschool graduates are more likely than their peers to participate in community service, vote, engage in civic opportunities, and succeed in college. Aren't those the types of students and citizens that Georgia wants and would benefit from in the future? So I challenge you to remember that in a couple of weeks, and also extend an invitation to you. On Wednesday, February 17th, GHEA is sponsoring Homeschool Day at the Capitol. We have more than 1,600 as of last night signed up. So there are going to be 1,600 homeschoolers descending upon you. And they are eager, they are excited, they are ready to meet and engage with you and learn about their government. So please don't miss the opportunity to do the right thing and help ensure their future by providing them with the opportunities and better access and better equity for the Hope and Zell Miller scholarships as provided by House Bill 798. Thank you.
Okay, you got a few questions here. Representative Casas has a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if you'll indulge me, I've got two questions
Okay.
For the lady. Mary Beth, my first one, and you can just answer just from your experience in GHEA.
Certainly.
And I guess answer friendly or very friendly. When a homeschool student graduates and applies for a school, let's say in Florida, what's usually the response?
In Florida, I don't have personal experience.
Yeah.
I can tell you all the other bordering states.
Okay.
Florida, I don't know the answer to, but I would suspect friendly. I have not heard any complaints.
Very good. And my experience has been friendly.
Okay, great.
South Carolina,
Friendly.
Alabama.
Very, very friendly. I will tell you that the University of Alabama is stealing our UGA students because they can get a better out of the gate, I call it door prize, a merit scholarship for those same test scores. They can do better there than, and my son was almost one of them, the one that's at Georgia Tech. He just liked Georgia Tech better, so he's
Great.
home. So
Very good. My second question is, just if you can remember, how many credits? You said your children dual enrolled.
yes.
How many credits ballpark?
I'm most familiar because I'm currently making out transcripts for my graduating senior. He will graduate with 50 dual enrollment credits
50.
from the University of North Georgia.
Grades?
He made a 1B, the rest have been A's, so 3.9 something.
Thank you.
50 semester hours. So those have been selected to help him. He knows what he wants to do, and so his goal is also Georgia Tech. My other two children, my oldest, she'd only dual enrolled during her senior year, and that was before she became a dual enrolled student during the time when dual enrollment was not even open to homeschoolers at our public institutions. So she dual enrolled at a small private school. We drove an hour and 45 minutes one way, 3 times a week for her to dual enroll. She completed 12 hours, which is one semester. And my other son was about 26 hours, the one that's at Tech.
6 hours.
So,
And all
plus
of
he
them-
had some AP credit.
And all of them in the A and B range.
4.0s. The first B was this child. So that's all right. No, he was embraced with loving arms.
Okay,
We're proud of him.
Are you through, Representative?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you got some other question, Representative
Absolutely.
Bentley?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for sharing that really good information. As I stated earlier to Representative Chandler, I represent the small communities south of Macon.
Okay.
And for the homeschool day at the Capitol, I'm curious to know if you're expecting any homeschoolers from my area of the state. How can I find that out?
We will have that information available, and if I get your information, I'll be happy to provide
Sure.
that to you. And if you can give me your district number and everything, I will make sure I can let them know to look for you as well.
Thank you.
I do know that we have good representation from throughout the state. The families are very excited about this. So,
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Kelly?
Well, thank you, Ms. Marsh, for being here. I certainly appreciate you clearing up the fact that how eager Alabama is to get some Georgia intelligence over there.
Look out
They
now,
certainly
I grew up
need
in Alabama.
it. Well, we're glad to have you here now.
Thank you.
Your son that took out the student loans for
Yes.
a year. Do you know the amount of the dollar amount for the loans he had to get?
I know that the dollar amount, the discrepancy, I know what his reimbursement was once he received the retroactive Zelle. That reimbursement totaled $3,600, but it did not come as a single check. It kind of trickled in, and it kind of stretched over so that he even had to take out loans for that following fall. Because even though he had made timely application, GSFC had approved him. It just the process,
And all loans come with interest.
Absolutely, and those interests, it occurs.
Are you reimbursed for the interest?
No.
So he had to take the interest out of his pocket, and that's one of
Yes.
the biggest costs that affect the retroactiveness here,
Right.
is that they're being penalized right now, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience today and for the great work
Absolutely.
you've done with your children.
Well, thank you.
And
Thank you.
Shorter University, that's my undergraduate school.
Go
So
Hawks.
certainly, yeah, go Hawks.
Okay. Anybody else want to put a plug in for their college? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Morris, for testifying.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything? Okay. All right. It's up to the committee now. Anybody have any further discussion? I know, Chairman Carter, you came in a little bit tardy, but do you have any concerns or? Okay. All right. Well. Okay. You go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, do pass on the substitute in front of us, the HB 798, that being LC 336388S.
Okay. We got a motion. Do I hear a second? Got a second. Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anybody? Okay. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. Okay. That concludes the meeting. Thank you. Thank you for attending.